Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nutrition and Healthy Cooking with Jay Villar at Newton Community Farm. And today we're going to be talking all about apples. So we actually don't grow apples at Newton Community Farm. We partner with another local orchard that is about 45 minutes away in Groton, Massachusetts, at a place called Autumn Hill Orchard. And they've been growing apples locally for the past 24 years, and they grow over 25 varieties of apples there. So when they get to specialize in their produce, apples, we get to specialize in our produce. And one of the great partnerships that we're able to do is every fall, we make sure that we have plenty of apples available for our farm stand, for our farmers market, for our CSA shares, as well as our healthy harvest bags. So we get to try varying different levels of local produce, even if we don't grow it ourselves. So apples are great and wonderful. We've all obviously have heard and talked about apples in the past, and they're just a wonderful fruit that is the most popular fruit in the world. They have been around in the US shortly after the Mayflower and the Pilgrims, and the first apple trees were actually planted in the Massachusetts Bay Area shortly after the Pilgrims came so long ago. And now around the world there are over 7,500 varieties of apples that are grown. In the US, there are 2,500 varieties of apples grown, but we actually only produce around 100 varieties of apples for commercial uses in the US. And one of the things about sort of apples is the best nutrition in the apple is actually when you have it raw. The fiber and the nutrition is all going to be found just within that short layer there. So that skin where the apples have kind of grown the exterior, that's where all of the nutrients, the vitamins A, C, and E, the fiber, the probiotics, all are going to live. So if you want to have the apple at its height of its nutrition, make sure it's ripe, and make sure you're just slicing it up, or you're just taking a bite and you're eating the whole thing. The fiber, or the fruit, the apple meat per se is great sort of taste, but as I mentioned, all of the nutrition is just happening in that skin layer right there. So there's so many ways which you could enjoy your apples. Whether you have it raw, whether you make applesauce with it, and you can make apple pancakes, you can make apple butter, and you can make apple crisps, which are a great dessert that you could use when you have lots of apples to go through in your season, and you want to treat yourself and treat your friends and family to something delicious. So this is what we're actually going to be making today, which is a apple crisp with old-fashioned oat topping. So what you're going to need, you're going to need 6 apples. So obviously there's only 3 here, but I've already done the work of coring and peeling these apples. So as you can note, that this is a dessert and a treat, as well. It has apples in it, but it's not going to necessarily give us the full nutritional content that we're looking for. What if we have that? We'll just simply eat an apple later. So for this recipe, you're going to need 6 apples. Doesn't matter the size. You're just simply going to peel it and then slice it and then dice it up. So you want around sort of this size of apple peeled and then cored. So I did that before our little show here, and this is what 6 apples peeled and cored are going to look like. you're going to need half a cup of butter. So the butter that you're gonna need is pretty much a stick of butter. So 1 cup of butter is equal to a stick of butter. And in the recipe, it's gonna tell you to really kind of get it, the butter crumbled. So I just cut in these little tabs to get it ready. You're gonna need some cinnamon, some white sugar, some brown sugar, some oats, and some flour. So with this recipe, you're simply going to need sort of 2 bowls here. This is the bowl that we're going to be using for our baking. So right now the oven is set for 350 and we're gonna have our recipe going in for 40 minutes. So we're just gonna get our baking dish. So this is obviously a pizza pan, but you can use your square dish, just enough for the apples to kind of lay there flat. We're going to toss in our sugar. So this is 2 tablespoons of sugar, and this is 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And then all we're gonna do is just sort of like toss that and coat that together in our apple dish. Kind of get that all coated with the cinnamon and the sugar, kind of evenly coated amongst all our little apple chunks. So when you kind of go through it, it's gonna feel like sand kind of going through your fingers, and that's the consistency that you're kind of feeling for when you make sure that each little bit of apple chunk has its proper coat. Okay, next we're going to make sure that our mixture of our brown sugar, our oats, and our flour are all put together. So we're going to add in our brown sugar, we're going to add in our oats, we're going to add in our flour, and we're going to add 1 more teaspoon of cinnamon. And that's like that lovely flavor that kind of pops and makes this super special. So I'm just gonna take my fork here. I'm just gonna blend it all together to make sure that we get all of those mixtures and those little bits of brown sugar chunks really finely grained up. So it's all mixed within the oats and the flour, and the brown sugar and the cinnamon is all there. And then this is where the butter comes in. So with the butter, as I mentioned, you're really gonna look for these small little chunks. So when you mix it up and the butter melts in the oven, it's evenly distributed. So obviously if you just take the whole stick of butter and you put it in there, it's not gonna evenly coat. So you just wanna make sure that it's all kind of evenly coated there, and I'm gonna take my little fork and get it. But a little kitchen hack is simply just to kind of do the work before you put it into the bowl initially. And you're simply just going to take these little bits, make sure that it's kind of crumbled already. So the butter crumble is going to be in the apple crisp crumble. So that looks great. Oh, 1 more. And then all I'm going to do is just make sure that it's all kind of evenly coated there. And that's what I'm looking for, is those just little butter bits that will eventually melt and then add into the depth of flavor that we're looking for within our apple crumble. So now we have our dish of our apple crumble, and we have our apples. And once everything is kind of finely, evenly coated there, we're just going to mix it up. I'm trying to evenly put it into our dish. And simply just get it nice and evenly coated. So now that we have the sugar and the cinnamon coated within the apples, now what I'm looking for is for this just to be evenly distributed, especially on the sides, because the sides are what's really going to be heating up first, and that will be kind of what will potentially burn if you don't allow it to evenly cook up. So I can really feel the butter here. Make sure it's evenly coated, and there. So that's going to be great. All right, so now that it's kind of evenly coated here, you know, it's gonna kind of look like this going into the oven. So you wanna make sure that your oven is already set for 350 in the middle rack, and you're gonna set your timer for 40 minutes. So when I come back, we're gonna see what it looks like. All right, so it was 40 minutes at 350, and we got our delicious cinnamon apple crisps out of the oven. So we're simply just going to plate it up, and if you want to have a little bit of ice cream on top of it and just added treat, it's quite tasty. Now, if you want to make this at home and follow the recipe exactly the way I did it, you could either follow us on Instagram or Facebook. We also do a nutrition and healthy recipes newsletter that has been coming out once a week. It also has this recipe as all of the other recipes that we've been doing throughout the season. So you can go to our website, newtoncommunityfarm.org, and simply sign up yourself for the website. Go to the website to sign up for our newsletter there. That was a mouthful, but I have a mouthful now with these delicious desserts. So thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time.